So we have to do another surgery. This one will be on my arm. So I actually had another one done after this whole situation up here and me posting about it. I had two more surgeries after that situation, and we ended up clearing the margins and basically getting out everything that would decrease the chances of the tumor that grew back here to basically grow back. But funny thing was is that I had another bump on my arm right here, and now you can probably see the scar. But I had another bump on my arm here that I had for about a year and a half. And to correct, I've already corrected myself, but to correct what I was saying before, I was calling it a cyst when it really was a tumor. So this stuff in my head was a tumor, which I think for the first couple of weeks when they told me, it wasn't really registering, and I kept thinking it was a cyst because the last two things that I took out from years ago when I was much younger, like early teens, when not early teens, like the first one was like when I was 8 or somewhere around there, and the second one was a couple years after. So I got those, and then I was thinking the thing in my head was the same thing. But yeah, if you want more information on that I did a whole first video on that. But yeah, we took out the first one, didn't come to expect that this was going to be the same thing. And the one that was on my head was already rare as it was. I think it's like a 1 or 2% chance. And I was making a joke. I'm like, bro, why can't I? Where are those chances when we're working on certain things and we're expecting it to go big or do really well? Where are those chances there? You know what I'm saying? Like either way, I'm gonna keep going. But it's funny how stuff works sometimes. But yeah, so come to find out, the thing that they took out here is the same thing that they took out here. It's a different. It's just in a different area of my body. So even more rare. And now I'm starting to, when they told me that, when my dermatologist told me that, I'm starting to low key freak out internally. Externally, I'm not really showing it much, but I'm internally, I'm like, bro, what the hell is going on? And yeah, but now we're in a position where, because this is my arm, she was basically saying they don't want to just start digging into it and go and pause. They don't want to start digging into my arm and basically saying like, okay, we're gonna keep taking out pieces of tissue until we clear the margins, which is basically they don't see any remnants of the tumor itself. So it decreases the chance significantly of it growing back because they already took it out, but they want to make sure it doesn't grow back because if the cells are still there, basically it has a really high chance of it growing back. So that's where we're at right now. But the reason why she doesn't want to do that is because this is my arm. It's a lot easier to hit a nerve that can basically numb my feelings and everything. So in the moment I heard that, I'm like, bro, if it's in my head, I was like, hey man, this is one of those things where if it's I was being extreme. I don't think it can be, but I was in my mindset of, man, if it's my time, then it's my time type of stuff. Like if this is something that ends up being serious, then it's in God's hands. Let God handle it. Leave it to God. But she was that's what she told me, and then that's kind of where my mind went immediately. And I'm saying, man, I don't know if I want to take those type of risks because that's crazy. But anyway, so from there, she was saying, so think about it, think about what you want to do, and she referred me out basically to some people that I can talk to and somebody who has a little bit more, not necessarily experience, but could give a further further information on this subject and everything. So that's what I did, and I went to her. And what she did now, she's saying that they want to do like a basically an MRI to see how deep this thing is and to see if it's necessary to go back to her and have her take it out, or if it goes to a certain extent, then probably have somebody who specializes even beyond her that specifically does stuff like this, because this stuff is rare in of itself. So there's already limited knowledge on it, but there's of course people who specialize specifically in taking these kind of things out, and beyond her, I guess specialties. I didn't even I knew there were levels, but I didn't know to this extent. So yeah, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, at this stage, man, wherever this stuff goes, It's kind of like what I was saying in the first video, right? I do a good chunk of stuff outside of cybersecurity and my life in that field. I have my own business, I have my own responsibilities and empire, if you will, that I'm focusing on building, right? So when certain factors or certain life situations hit you that are outside of your control, it's one of those factors where you're saying, "Hey, man, I can control what I can control. This is not really something that I can control to an extent." I mean, you can make jokes like, "Bro, what are you doing to your body? Like, what is your body doing? What's going on, bro? Like, come on, man, get better." But at the end of the day, there's certain things you can't really control. So it's one of those moments where you're like, "Hey, as long as this thing, as of right now, isn't malignant, which is the type of tumor that you really don't want, the type that's basically cancer. As long as it's not to that extent right now, but the risk is still there, I mean, it's fine for us to take the safe step. I think I would be a little bit more hesitant if I was to just hear what she said about the risk of me, being numb in my arm or whatever, and just straight up saying, screw it, bro. Let's just go straight with it, and whatever happens, happens. I think I would be more hesitant to do that. But now understanding that, they're gonna do like a MRI to see how deep it goes, and depending on how deep it is, they'll have a specialist who does this kind of stuff go ahead and deal with this and take whatever else out of here and reduce the risk of, because there's always risk, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but really reduce the risk of numbness and all those extra stuff. Then I'll go that route. But it all depends on, I guess, what the results look like with that. But I guess the you can always look at it from a positive perspective that, hey, man, it could be, this stuff could be some cancer that was growing in your body for 5 years. I mean, yeah, I always make, and not even an effort, but I always have trained myself. I've always trained myself to have that mindset of, look, you control what you can control. What you can't control, you do what you can in that situation, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's been, I can say, really annoying going through surgeries for anybody who's an athlete or has who's worked on any skill set, and maybe a life situation happens that kind of prevents you from being as efficient as you want to. That stuff gets really, really frustrating, especially when you have a vision of where you want to be at a specific time as far as the progress that you're making. It's really frustrating. And a year and a half ago, I got into calisthenics, but prior to that, it was more like aerobics, high intensity interval training. And for the longest, I was like, man, what can I do to get back into that mode? Because prior to high intensity interval, I was doing like track and basketball, and I still do basketball for like fun and everything, and jogging and stuff. But and I'm kind of going on a little bit off on tangent, but we'll get back to what we're saying here. But when I got into high intensity interval training, that was something that just keep me in shape. But it wasn't something where I was like, how can I make progress? What's gonna keep me going? What else can I do that makes me that makes us a little bit more exciting? That's how I got into calisthenics. And the first goal was the one arm push up. Was able to do that, and then doing the Russian styles, and then getting into my first 5 to 10 pull ups, and then being able to do that, and then seeing how much I can get to until I can do my first muscle up, and then possibly one arm pull ups. But just getting into that progressive mindset of how can we move to the next step, handstands, handstand push ups, all of those. And when you start getting into now something that you can control, it's not like I was injured or anything. I take very good care of myself as far as when I'm doing stuff. If I feel like something's off, I'll stop and take whatever rest I need and that kind of stuff. But something like surgery, especially when things can be in the air sometimes, it really stops your progress where you have to take 2 3 weeks 4 weeks off, and you have to. Otherwise, you're gonna just extend the process of healing, or you're gonna complicate things. That stuff is really frustrating, man, to say the least. And it's only one of the number of, annoyances, especially when, if, let's say I'm doing stuff for a client where cyber is concerned, or a consultant or whatever, and it's just a super busy day, right? And you're dealing with whatever kind of stressful stuff you have to deal with, and it's just there, and you don't know how to, and it's just really hard to, it's really hard to deal with. Usually I work out in the mornings, so then I, kind of get it out of the way. But it does help with stress too sometimes. And sometimes you just, you have pent up emotions sometimes, just from different stuff you're dealing with, and that's an outlet. If I didn't have that, then I still have, my work that I do, whether it's digital art or character world building, that kind of stuff, or writing music. I still have those things. So it's good that I still can do those kind of stuff. But at the same time, working out, that's something I've done all my life. So it's almost all my life. But it's frustrating, man. But I mean, that's really where we're at right now. I don't want to. This is pretty long already. I don't think this really needs to be much longer. We get the idea and everything. But yeah, long story short, we got to do another one of these. Hopefully, it doesn't last as long as the one that I had to do on my head. We don't know how many surgeries that'll be, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes, man. Control what you can. What you can't control, do what you need to do to work around it, or do what you got to do. But I've looked at it from a perspective of, hey, man, I may be dealing with this weird situational stuff that's going on. I may have some family stuff going on too that's outside of my control. I may have a day where it's a little annoying, whether it's from, cyber, or whether it's from, my team that I'm working with, and maybe certain plans that I have aren't going the ways that I want them to. But at the end of the day, man, we keep going regardless, right? We keep going regardless. Only thing that's going to stop me is death itself, and makes it a life worth living, working towards a vision and a goal that you have. Otherwise, I'd be depressed and, sitting around doing nothing. And that couldn't be me. I couldn't be just doing one thing and then saying, you achieve, I guess, one great moment or whatever, and that's it. For me, it's more than that, and constantly chasing the ultimate goal. And once reaching that point, seeing what makes sense next to tackle. I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what we put on this. At least that's what I've always believed. We're here to, find ourselves and figure out our purpose and where we fit. So that's what's gonna keep me going regardless. And yeah, I'd say that's really it, man. So whether this continues to, whether this gets better, or it stays where it's at, or we have a few more challenges as far as this is concerned, where this is at. Either way, I'm gonna keep going, because the last thing that I had to do was pretty trash, man. I'm not even gonna lie. That's the worst pain I've ever felt. I think I was saying it was a 10. Probably not a 10. That's a little bit over dramatic. But because as far as I know, I think, I'm trying, if it was a 10, I wouldn't be talking, bro. I would have been passed out, and I didn't pass out. So maybe like an 8, or up to a 9, but yeah, not a 10, bro. But yeah, that was probably the worst pain I've ever felt, and that's the new marker as far as pain goes. So yeah, man, we'll see where all this goes, and either way, I'm gonna keep going. We got some goals to conquer and new heights to reach, so let's keep it moving.